I have a surprise for you. Yeah! Hold me the crown. Yeah! Hold me the crown. Hold me the crown. Hold me the crown. Hold me the crown. Hold me.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Jasbro Gonzo here. Another What's Next. Happy Thursday. Well, as the Rogan turns, yes, more ass clownery against Joe Rogan. It seems like it's been the Joe Rogan week. Now, I'm sure Rogan's happy about it because Joe is probably getting subscribers up the yin-yang right now. People tuning in who never listened to Joe Rogan one iota are now subscribed to him. And thank you to the knuckleheads on the left. Now, speaking of knuckleheads, it's the continuous clown show that we have. And let's get this ball rolling. This comes out of Breitbart. Crosby, Stills, Nash to join campaign to blacklist Joe Rogan. Yes, they got Neil Young's back. Singers Crosby, Stills, and Nash released a joint statement on Wednesday joining their Crosby, Stills, and Nash Young member Neil Young in the blacklisting campaign of famed podcaster Neil Young. I mean, I'm fat. One can only hope. Joe Rogan, excuse me. The trio called on Spotify to take on real action regarding Rogan's podcast, adding they do not want their music on their dangerous platform. We support Neil. We agree with him that there's dangerous disinformation being aired on Spotify's Joe Rogan's podcast, they said in a joint statement posted to Crosby's Twitter account. The trio went on to claim they always value alternative points of view, but justified their apparent call for censorship of Rogan's content by claiming that people are able to listen to his podcast will have deadly consequences. Quote, we support Neil. We agree with him that there is dangerous disinformation being aired on Spotify's Joe Rogan podcast. While we always value alternative points of view, knowingly spreading disinformation during this global pandemic has deadly consequences. Until real action is taken to show concern for humanity must be balanced with commerce. We do not want our music or the music we made together to be on the same platform. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Yes, of course, as we all know, Aria also pulled her music, off the platform as well because of supposed racism against Joe Rogan regarding comments that were made that were problematic, according to her, with Dr. Jordan Peterson. Now, continue the clown show. Speaking of clowns, here's Mr. EUNUCH himself, Brian Stelter, in regards to Joe Rogan.
Comment about it yesterday. Tell us your point of view first about this Spotify mess, because it's really dominated the week.
Yeah, you know, what I think is interesting about the backlash against Spotify vis-a-vis Joe Rogan is that people are fundamentally angry about not being able to stop his audience from wanting news that is bad for them, wanting something that's bad for them. Yes. So, we're all haunted by the specter
Dr.
of
Robert Malone
this guy
and one Dr.
Joe
Peter
Rogan and
McCullough.
internalizing this bad information and making bad choices as a result.
That's bad information, yes.
Rogan is like a weed that sprang up outside the mainstream media ecosystem, and he thrived there, and he has this huge audience. And that's what's really scary, that Spotify could kick him off tomorrow and it wouldn't make a dent. It wouldn't make a dent in his audience. People would still listen to him. And crucially, they still wouldn't trust more mainstream media sources. And I think that's what's really, really frightening to people.
Oliver,
you are correct, ma'am.
Well, I think the key thing to keep in mind here is that, people who are listening to Joe Rogan's podcast don't necessarily believe it to be bad information. So there was an analogy drawn between Doritos and Joe Rogan's podcast. People know that Doritos are not necessarily good for them. That you're not going to find a nutritional expert who says, you should eat a lot of Doritos. But there are a lot of people who listen to Joe Rogan's podcast who believe that he's actually the truth teller. They believe the opposite, that Joe Rogan is good for an informational diet. And I think that's what's so important, is that the people who are listening to him don't believe it to be bad information. So it's difficult, I guess, for them to make that choice, that good choice of consuming information when they think that the podcast hosting people with anti-vaccine rhetoric is really the truth-telling podcast.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. There is just so much to unpack there, but that'll be later. We move on. This comes out of the New York Post. One, circle back Psaki. Cheers, Spotify. Warning, the COVID podcast says more should be done than just what Spotify has done. White House Press Secretary Jen Circleback applauded Spotify Tuesday for adding disclaimers to podcast episodes that discuss the coof, before adding there's more that can be done. Spotify warnings will link a virus information page in response to pressure campaign to boot Joe Rogan off the platform over, quote, controversial remarks on his popular podcast regarding the vaccines and treatment options. Quote, the disclaimer is a positive step, but we want every platform to continue doing more to call out mis and disinformation, while also uplifting accurate information, Psaki said in response to reporters' questions at her regular press briefing. Quote, look at the facts, right? You are 16 times more likely to be hospitalized if you are unvaxxed. 68 more times likely to die of someone who is boosted. If you're unvaxxed, she added, that's pretty significant. And we think that there's something that is unquestionable that should be on the basis of how people communicate over it. Our view is a good step, Psaki included. It's a positive step, but there's more can be done. Now, of course, she is hinting on big tech. Speaking of big tech, we go to town hall. White House advocates for big tech to censor health experts they disagree with. Yes, more censorship because of differing opinions, because it doesn't fit the narrative. Speaking of reporters on White House Tuesday, Press Secretary Psaki Circleback encouraged big tech companies to do more, quote unquote, censor misinformation about the Wuhan corona pandemic. Spotify. Let's hear her.
Surgeon General also was asked on MSNBC about Joe Rogan's vaccine comments on Spotify, and he said that tech companies have an important role to play in stopping misinformation because they are the predominant places where misinformation spreads. Spotify is putting out advisory warnings on episodes that have to do with COVID-19. Does the White House and the administration think this is a satisfactory step, or do you think that companies like Spotify should go further than just putting a label on there to say, hey, go do your own check this out? There's more research you can look at, scientific research.
Yes, those wonderful fact checkers.
Sure. Well, last July, you probably know, but the Surgeon General also took the unprecedented step to issue an advisory on the risk of misinformation in public health, which is a very significant step. And amid that, he talked about the role social media platforms have. So our hope is that all major tech platforms and all major news sources, for that matter, be responsible and be vigilant to ensure the American people have access to accurate information on something as significant as COVID-19. That certainly includes
Funny
Spotify.
How she's reading
so this
her
disclaimer
bullet points
is a
because
positive
she can't
step,
think off
but
the top
we
of her
want every
head.
platform
Then again,
to continue doing more to
she's
call
Jen
out
Psaki.
mis and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information. I mean, look at...
Okay, we continue. Psaki was asked about Spotify's decision to slap a disclaimer on podcasts discussing the virus after the left and the government went after Joe Rogan for engaging in lengthy discussions contrary to White House narrative. In a video posted on an Instagram page, Rogan took issue with the term misinformation and pointed out factual information about the pandemic has been repeatedly censored. Quote, there's a lot of people who have distorted the perspective of what I do. The podcast has been accused of spreading dangerous misinformation, specifically about 2 episodes, one with Peter McCullough and one with Dr. Robert Malone. Peter McCullough is a cardiologist and he is the most published physician in his field in history. Those are facts. Dr. Robert Malone owns 9 patents on the creation of mRNA vaccine technology and at least partially responsible for the creation of technology that has led to mRNA vaccines. Both these people are very credentialed, very intelligent, very accomplished, and have an opinion that is different from the mainstream narrative. I wanted to hear what their opinion is. I had them on because of that. These episodes in particular, those episodes were labeled as dangerous. Psaki's statement comes 1 week after Surgeon General Vivek Murthy also advocated for censorship of differing viewpoints.
Rogan, who hosts the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, has frequently promoted unproven methods for treating COVID-19 and downplayed the need for vaccines. Last year, Spotify purchased his podcast library for an estimated $100 million. Dr. Murthy, what do you think are the best ways to push back on misinformation about COVID that continues to be aggressively pushed, whether it be Joe Rogan's podcast or all over Facebook?
Well, Mika, it's such an important question because we can have the best science available, we can have the best public health expertise available, but it won't help people if they don't have access to accurate information. Something I've always believed as a doctor is that people have the right to make their own decisions, but they also have the right to have accurate information to make that decision with. Now, when it comes to how we root out the misinformation in society right now, and give people access to accurate information, we've got to do several things. Number one, we've got to recognize that our technology platforms, whether particularly social media, these have an important role to play. These are the predominant places where we're seeing misinformation spread. These platforms have still not stepped up to do the right thing and do it.
Of course, do the right thing, which means kick those like Joe Rogan off the air. My thoughts. There was a lot to unpack here. The fact of the matter is that those like Rogan, who bring on credible people like Peter McCullough, like Robert Malone, like Jordan Peterson, and others, are the ones who are getting slapped with the quote label misinformation. And we all know the fact of the matter is that that's not the case. These are people with scientific basis behind them, scientific facts, and like I said, credentials behind them. When you have idiots like Psaki, like CNN's EUNUCH Brian Stelter, basically saying, if you don't listen to us, we're the ones who are putting out facts. You listen to anybody else, you're an idiot, you're a rube, you're a moron. That is what they're telling you, the American people. That's exactly what they're telling you and me. But this is not going to end. I mean, this has been going on all week, and they are going to try to pressure those like Google, who have had Rogan's certain episodes removed, YouTube, who's had certain episodes of Rogan's show pulled, especially with Malone and McCullough, have been pulled. But then you know, just as that woman on CNN said, if you pull Rogan from Spotify today, like now, doesn't matter. You're going to have people search and reach out to Rogan from all over the world. So really, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nobody has the reach of Rogan right now. Probably outside of Tucker Carlson, nobody has that kind of reach. But Rogan's going to continue to do what he does. And on his video, as I said on my video the other day, that it seemed that he took a step back in regards to, I'm okay with Spotify slapping a disclaimer on my podcast regarding when I talk about the CUF. And to me, I wouldn't have done that. I would have said, no, I will continue to do what I do. You can do what you want to do, but I'm still going to bring on people like Malone, like McCullough, to have differing opinions. I've always had different opinions because my opinion can contrast their opinion. I may not always agree, but still I can challenge them. That is playing devil's advocate. That is what Rogan has always done. So this nonsense is going to continue. This bullshit is going to continue. They're going to continue to go after Rogan. They're going to continue to pressure, have that pressure, big tech, to come down on Rogan and basically slap Rogan and kick him off. Dude, you want to make him to be a martyr? Go for it. Because if you do something like this, you're going to have tons of more people reach out and search for Rogan and subscribe to him. How many people? How many thousands have already done so? On Instagram, on his Twitter page, how many thousands have already done just that? And with that being said, I'm As The Rogan Turns. This is What's Next. Want to see more just like this? Please leave a comment below, like it, share it, subscribe to it. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.